Okay, I think we can go ahead and start. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pathways to Resilience information session, where we aim to present to you the Pathways to Resilience program, as well as how you can express your interest to be part of this program. My name is Heidi Johansson. I work as a project manager for the European Regions Research and Innovation Network. We are one of the partners in the Pathways to Resilience project, and I will be moderating today's session. So let's move to the next slide and take a look at the agenda for today. We will start with an introduction to the Pathways to Resilience program, which will be given by Fernando Diaz Lopez, who is the project coordinator coming from EIT Climate-KIC. After that, I will take over and present to you a bit how you can express your interest in the Pathways to Resilience program, how this whole process works, and so on. And then we have dedicated quite a lot of time for a Q&A session at the end, as we expect you might have some questions. And then we hope to finish the webinar by the latest at 11. So quickly, a few housekeeping rules. You are all automatically muted and your cameras are off. For the Q&A session, we encourage you to raise your hand if you have a question. My colleague will then unmute you and enable your camera so you can ask your question. You can also ask questions in the chat. However, we will prioritize hands, as it's always a bit tricky to keep track of what's happening in the chat, but we'll do our best to also address any questions you have in the chat. Also for information that this webinar is being recorded, and we will upload the recording to the Pathways to Resilience website, so you can rewatch it later if you want to. Also, we will develop a FAQ document, which also will be added to the website, building on the questions that we received today. So this one you can also refer to later once it's online, in case we were not able to answer some of your questions today. So without any further ado, I will hand over to Fernando to present to us the Pathways to Resilience program.
Thank you, Heidi, and it's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, everybody. And if you want to turn on your camera, that's absolutely fine. I think no, that's not possible. Sorry, but if you want to later on interact with us, that's perfectly fine. That's the idea of today. We'll be sharing my screen just for a minute. And then you should be able to see now the screen. Just to tell you that, well, obviously we are today because you all are interested in the topic of climate adaptation at the regional level or at the local level. And Pathways to Resilience is a project which is funded by Horizon Europe that is part of the European Union mission on adaptation to climate change. And what I will be doing in the next 5 minutes is just to give you a bit of the context that you all are familiar with. I am almost certain of it. And second, and what is more interesting, what this project is about and what is the program that will be allocating 21 million euros of cascade funding to beneficiaries, whether single beneficiaries or consortiums that are interested and would be submitting a proposal in this program in 2 calls for proposals. My name is Fernando Diaz from EIT Climate-KIC, and I am leading a consortium of nearly 100 individuals in different capacities from 13 different organizations, including Climate-KIC and ERRIN, but also ICLEI, Regions for Sustainable Development, the Red Cross Climate Center, Tecnalia, IASA, Paul Watkins Associates, Global Basal Infrastructure, and Deltares, and then it's a group of professionals that have been working in EU funding, but more on the practitioner side. So just to give you a bit of peace of mind that this is not a really highly driven academic or scientific profile. There is a good balance between the practice, the policy needs of the regions and local authorities, and well, a bit of the people who's been working on this topic for a while. Now, this is just to show you something that you're all experiencing. This is really, many of us are wondering whether if this is really our new normal in Europe and in the world. You know, if this changing climate is here to stay. It seems to be the case. You know, the predictions and the latest IPCC report indicate that we are not on track to keep the 1.5 degrees unless we change dramatically many of the way we operate. And adapting to climate change today is a necessity. So why should we care about climate adaptation is something that you all, you all have your own answer. But at the European level, you know, it's not only a concern about the citizens and the well-being of the citizens, but it's also you know, the projections for economic losses and for environmental damage it's quite serious. So there is a need to foster climate resilience, and we all understand climate resilience in probably in different ways, you know, and then maybe at the local and regional level, you know, climate adaptation is part or is developed together in when there is a plan or where there is programming or where there is a strategy in place. It's always or very often developed together with climate mitigation strategies, you know, as a whole package of climate action. But then the resilient is the target. You know, we want to foster a more resilient state of being of socioeconomic systems, of socio-technical systems, whether it's, you know, infrastructure or whether it's, you know, land use or whether it's industrial use, you know, and really improving this state of how we interact with the changing climate. It's an imperative. We are somehow with the time pressure of doing it fast enough. So those, you know, while we try to, you know, tackle the sources of greenhouse gas emission and that are causing global warming, the need for that is already there. You know, heat waves, a lot of much water, you know, in the season of rains, and then extreme weather events. The soil composition has changed, you know, probably in your region, you know, you hear about productivity losses in agricultural farms, or, you know, there are many things happening. And, you know, right now we hear in the news, you know, the fire season has started in North America, but in Europe, a few weeks ago in Italy, there were floodings. So, but the good thing is that, you know, although, you know, we are all aware, and then we are taking steps to increase the preparedness, to anticipate and to deal with risks and to deal with all of these, you know, extreme events. The good news is that most of the action is already happening at this level, you know, in not only those regions and local authorities interested in the mission, but in general, you know, 90% of climate change adaptation measures are already happening at the regional level. However, this is not, we need to put the things in context, because there are other studies and other indicators that say, well, you know, the degree of implementation of adaptation measures compared to mitigation measures is still, you know, if you look at the Covenant of Mayors, for example, you know, you look at a dramatic difference between the amount of let's call it compliance with, you know, mitigation versus adaptation. And adaptation is real. And then I assume that you all here because you are interested in what we have to offer as a program, not only in terms of funding, but especially about you know, the opportunity to share best practices, and then to go into and start a path of planning and getting ready for, you know, implementing solutions of transformative climate adaptation. This is really the spirit of what the EU and the European the European policy response to the Paris Agreement, the European Green Deal, the climate and the Climate Act of the EU, and the European Climate Adaptation Strategy of 2021. That is a major update from the previous climate adaptation strategy, and this idea of missions, the mission of adaptation to climate change. And many of you might be familiar with missions or the missions approach to innovation. And if you are not, missions is a policy approach that has put the man on the moon. It's really ambitious targets, transformative change that is provoked and is promoted and is planned, and the change is fostered in a direction. And in the case of the European Commission, this idea of fostering missions is to really trigger and to achieve transformative change. Climate adaptation strategy and the mission, in essence, what Europe wants is smart adaptation. Systemic adaptation is to say, not only look at a single point of intervention. Is not only about green walls. It's also about looking at the interactions between all of the different problems and all of the different barriers and all of the different solutions to overcome those barriers and to overcome the challenges to implementation, and unavoidably and clearly faster adaptation. And here I will be repeating a lot during the rest of my probably less than the 5 minutes now. I'm going to be repeating a lot this concept of transformative adaptation, the transformative climate adaptation. This week in Bonn, UNFCCC is discussing about transformative climate adaptation, as a way to accelerate a process of change towards climate resilience, and then this is really at the core of what the EU climate adaptation ambitions is pretending. Many of you know the missions, but bottom line mission and the mission to climate adaptation of climate change is a program, or it's a program that goes all the way to 2030. There is an implementation plan for each of the missions, and at least the mission for implementation to climate change, we want to help preparing Europe for climate disruptions, to anticipate risks. We want to accelerate transition to a resilient future of 150 regions and communities, and we want to build resilience with 75 demonstrators as a way of showing that it's possible to do this larger scale transformation. Now, where are we? Pathways to Resilience is in objective 2 of the mission. So this mission is implemented in a different way than the cities mission and the source mission or the ocean missions. Nonetheless, not only our project, but another project, other 2 projects that I will show you in a slide in a minute. We are contributing to objective 2 of accelerated the transition and prepare together with the regions, strategies and pathways of climate resilience for 150 communities and regions. Our project specifically is really, as I was mentioning, contributing to this objective of the EU mission. But what it does, in a very broad sense, is help regions and communities to better understand climate risks, to develop pathways to be better prepared and cope with this changing climate. And we do that by starting a planning process and accelerating a planning process that goes one step beyond of the traditional adaptation mechanism from for example, that you can see in the tools that we have available until now around adaptation cycles or policy planning, by adding this element of transformation. So we identify also transformative innovative solutions, and not only that, we help regions to prepare a plan of how to finance the implementations of those solutions. So this is a very important clarification, and I will be repeating this next week in the EU Mission Forum. This project will not be financing implementation. It will be financing planning and getting ready for implementation in a very transformative way. And also an important message is that this project and the program that we are launching to support regions and communities is open for charter and non-charter regions. in the sense that we are addressing also the most vulnerable regions in Europe, and we understand that language might be a barrier. So together with the mission implementation platform, we will make some effort to reach out also in other languages. But we want to make clear that obviously the opportunity, if you want to partner with us, it's open to all. The key information of the project is there. We have 60 months ahead of us. We're only in our 6th month of existence, so we are still in the planning phase, starting the process of getting ready for the launching the first call for proposals. I am the project coordinator, and this is a Reach and Innovation Action, if it means anything to you, because all of this is funded by Horizon Europe. And then the key element is that we have made there is a provision of 21 million euros, which is reserved to fund 100 projects at the regional and community local level. And this is the slide that I was hoping to show you. I hope you don't get confused by this, because this mission is very diverse in the sense that, well, yes, the mission is there is a mission secretariat and there is the European Commission behind it, and then there is a mission implementation platform, but there is also the Climate Adapt as a knowledge repository. So the thing that you see in the bottom of the slide is really the two cross-cutting platforms and a knowledge repository that serves the whole mission, you know. And then there is a number of projects. There has been other projects that already were launched. Some of you may have or may be part of those projects, or may have heard of Resilience and all those projects that are working since a couple of years now in experimenting or piloting this approach to transformative climate resilient pathways, because the concept as proposed by the UNFCCC, it's a really interesting concept, but operationally it has had the challenges. So today we are together with Climax and Agora, we are the 3 mission projects that we are looking at. Climax is focusing on climate risk. Pathways to Resilience, we focus on climate adaptation pathways and plans, strategies, and innovation agendas. And Agora is looking at citizen engagement. And there is a number of demonstrator regions that some of them already started, like the Project Regions for Climate and Resist and Embracer, and others will start now in September, October. Just to tell you that obviously it might sound a bit overwhelming, you know, oh, there are so many things happening. Yes, because the mission is really ambitious, and just to keep in mind that Horizon funding is just a tiny portion of what is expected to really catalyze action in support of the mission. You know, there is a lot of expectations that all of this is a sort of a seed funding to get ready, but the real implementation, you know, the large scale implementation, at least this is what the European climate adaptation mission implementation plan suggests. Is not Climate-KIC, not our project, but this is the policy document available for everybody. It suggests that a lot of the large scale implementation will be happening with regional funding, with cohesion funds and other type of funding. So here Horizon funding is used to support regions in this process of piloting and experimentation, because it is true that it hasn't been done before. It hasn't been done to the scale and with the degree of transformation that is required. So the regions that embark in this journey are champion regions, and then they have a mandate and ambition and the desire to be front runners and to gain the benefits of climate adaptation and to achieve transformative climate resilience in a faster way. Well, having said this, and this is just one slide before my last, Pathways to Resilience is not only about funding. It's yes, we have 21 million euros that will be allocated in 2 rounds of subgrant. One of them will be by the end of this year, 2023. The other second round of proposal will be by the end of 2024. And then there will be a series of support services or a series of activities for those 100 European regions and communities that will be funded, but we also want to engage 50 additional ones, and that whether in certain degree just because they want to learn about it or because they have their own resources or they are much more advanced, and we want to learn from them. So we also want to reach to an additional 50 and then create this peer-to-peer, across regions, across communities program. And then we have created a series of programs, for example, the innovation practice groups and the finance innovation lab, that will be a capacity building program on the method that we are using, which is a transformative climate resilient pathways and what we call the regional resilient journey framework, which is a way of, regardless of a region having, a modest amount of capacity is already developed to implement a process of planning and to a process of action for transformative climate adaptation, or whether you are already really advanced, the maturity resiliency framework that we are developing, that will be very ready, and they will be ready before the launch of the call for proposals, will be a tool to do a self-assessment and to guide regions. And Matilde, PEERS is just the old name of Pathways to Resilience, and there is there was a practical decision, but also a strategic decision of the consortium to rename. So you will still see in some documents the name PEERS, but is now Pathways to Resilience. So any reference to PEERS on the web and in many, there is many PEERS projects about mental health, and that didn't help us. It's good to stay focused and healthy, have peace of mind, but it was not the best acronym. So yes, the project has been rebranded and renamed. So the program, just in a nutshell, and what we are doing today, we're kickstarting a process of expression of interest. There will be calls for proposals, and then we have all of these really great services and tailored program training modules and toolboxes, and for the 100 regions that will be part of the program, to facilitate learning and to foster the preparedness of regions in the process of creating these plans and strategies. So let's keep in mind that here we are really talking about bringing two worlds together, the climate adaptation planning and the innovation support and upscaling of solutions. So again, we will not be funding implementation of those solutions. We will be funding the process of planning, the process of identifying the solutions, and the process of designing the financing plans for that process. So this is really the distinctive feature. So I'm aware you are having a lot of questions and about the call for proposals, and the call for proposals will be openly public. Will be made public in general, and then the only thing I can tell for now, and then obviously keep an eye on our website. We will be publishing a lot of answers to the questions that we received today. But in general, the Pathways to Resilient funding will follows the rules of Horizon Europe. So that should already give you an idea about eligibility. In terms of, there needs to be an established legal entity in an EU member state, and then there will be a number of requirements that will be published in the call for proposals. So we understand there is a lot of there's some time to prepare from now until end of the year, and then regions and regions and communities that are friends or the charter regions, they are welcome to apply, and there will be some mechanisms for creating some synergies with other missions, and then the specifics will be communicated through our website in the call for proposals. And eventually, and in the meantime, in the questions and answers section of our website. I'll give back the microphone to Heidi for taking you through the expression of interest, or why we are here today.
Yes, thank you, Fernando. Thanks for these introductions. I will take over from here and present to you a bit more about the how you can express your interest to be part of the Pathways to Resilience program. I'll pick up where Fernando left. So he already explained quite well what's in the pipeline. So you have the calls for proposals coming up that he already explained very well to you. Then the innovation practice groups. Really, these groups are really about facilitating peer learning, knowledge exchange between regions and communities. They will focus on different thematics, so financing, stakeholder engagement, the different key community systems for the ones of you who are familiar with the implementation plan, so nature-based solution, water management, and so on. So also a bit, depending on what your needs are. The Finance Innovation Lab will experiment and explore different financing models for adaptation, business models, different best practice cases, and so on, that will be shared with you as well. There will be a lot of training modules and toolboxes with tools, methods, guidelines, everything you need to develop your pathways, but also to tackle any other barriers and challenges you have in your regions. So then quickly to move to the expression of interest process. So as Fernando said, we really aim to mobilize at least 150 regions and communities here who are willing to accelerate their transformation towards climate resilience. The reason why we are doing this expression of interest process are, many reasons behind it. First is, of course, to understand, is the program interesting to regions? Like, are you motivated, willing to join the program and participate in our activities? Then, of course, as well as Fernando said, it's very important for us to identify and also reach these most vulnerable regions. So the ones that are vulnerable to the effects of climate change and who don't necessarily have the capacities to deal with this. So it's very important for us to also reach and engage these regions. Then to also learn about the adaptation challenges and barriers that you have, as well as the support needs, so that we can use this information when we design our activities and services. Then also to understand how you collaborate with your local ecosystem, so how the local governance works, because we will also be offering some support in this, which I will come back to later. And all of this is run to an expression of interest questionnaire that we have been developing. And this we are trying to disseminate through many different communication and dissemination channels to make sure that we reach all the European regions and communities. And I will now move into presenting a bit more the practical information around the questionnaire. So it is a questionnaire hosted on the EU survey platform. You do not need to have any login information to the platform in order to fill it in. I have added a questionnaire link here as well, because we will be sending out this presentation in PDF format to all registered participants after this webinar. So you will be able to also access the links there. It will close on the 15th of September at 6 o'clock Central European time. It includes 6 modules, which might sound quite a lot, but to be honest, many of these modules just contain 1 or 2 questions. So we have estimated that it will take you approximately 20 minutes to complete this questionnaire. And it should be completed in English. Most questions are really just tick box questions, so it doesn't require you to write a lot. So it should be fairly easy in that sense to fill it in as well. We have set up a help desk that is managed by myself and my colleague, that you also have here the email address, so you know how to reach us. Important to note is that this help desk is only for questions related to the expression of interest questionnaire or the process around the expression of interest. So any questions regarding the criteria for the calls for proposal or so, and similar questions we will not be able to answer because, as Fernando said, this is still very much in the, being developed, everything. So this is really just for questions related to the expression of interest questionnaire. And we aim to respond quite fast, so hopefully within 1 to 3 working days, you will have a response from us. Important to note is that it's not mandatory to complete this questionnaire in order to later apply for the calls for proposals. But I will in my next slide tell you why it's still very useful for you to complete the expression of interest questionnaire. And also important to state is, of course, that there will be a mandatory application process for both of the calls for proposals that the project will be launching. So submitting an expression of interest will not in any way exclude this application process. You will still have to apply for the funding as well. So why should you then as a region respond to the expression of interest questionnaire? Based on the contact information that we get from your region through this questionnaire, we will develop a list of contacts, and this list of people will be the first one that will receive information on the calls for proposals, so when the calls open, as well as direct invitations to your emails for any information sessions or similar activities that the project will organize in relation to the calls. Then also, as I said, we are asking some questions around how you engage with your local stakeholders that are relevant to your region's adaptation work. And this is because the questionnaire also enables you to express your interest to receive support from the project to better engage with your local stakeholders in case this is currently something you're not really able to do from the public authorities side. So we will organize different types of matchmaking activities, facilitated discussions, and so on to support as many regions as we can with engaging their local stakeholders. So this is also something you can express your interest for in this questionnaire. And then, as I said earlier, the information that we receive from you through the questionnaire will really be helpful for us when we design our support services and the capacity building activities that the project will be offering. So we really make sure that they correspond to the needs and interests of the regions. Then who can actually respond to the expression of interest questionnaire? This is very much linked to who can also then apply for the calls for proposals later on. So for the expression of interest, we want local and regional public authorities to reply to this because we think they are best placed to, or they are the ones who have the information, I think, that we are asking for in the questionnaire. So they are best placed to respond to the questionnaire. And these authorities have to be located in EU member states or Horizon Europe associated countries. You can see the list of currently associated countries here below. Of course, we are aware that this may change. There will be two rounds of, two calls for expressions of interest, and also 2 calls for proposals coming. So we are aware that in the meantime, things might change. Of course, then additional countries might be eligible at a later stage. And it's open to regions and communities on all the NUTS level, as well as local administrative units. Of course, it's important here to bear in mind as well that we want to work with the authorities that actually have the competence to work on adaptation. So the program might not be so useful to you if you're not able to work so much on adaptation, don't have the competencies in your country for that. And then we would also like to that people working in relevant departments within the public administration respond to the questionnaire. So a climate department, environmental department, or any other department you have, because also we think that these people are best placed and have the knowledge to actually answer accurately the questions we have in the questionnaire. As Fernando mentioned, it's open to both signatories as well as non-signatories of the mission charter. So you do not have to have signed the mission adaptation charter in order to respond to the expression of interest, as well as to then later apply for the calls. And important as well to highlight is that the expression of interest is not you're not committing to anything, so you don't need a signature or endorsement from a person holding a high-level political position in your region or community. So you're not committing to anything by submitting an expression of interest. And then finally, so what happens then after you have completed the questionnaire? As I said, we will create this kind of a contact list based on the contact people that have been mentioned in the questionnaire. So we will create this contact list, and you will then receive directly to your email information on any activities and information related to the calls for proposals. If you have expressed a need for support from the project to engage with your local adaptation stakeholders, we will contact you for this as well. Our resources are limited, so we may not be able to assist or support all the regions that express an interest in this support, but we will do our best, and we will for sure contact all the ones who have expressed an interest to receive this type of support. If you want to withdraw for any reason an expression of interest, you can at any point email the help desk, and we will then delete your expression of interest. Also important to bear in mind, as I said, there will be ahead then of the second calls for proposals, which Fernando said will come next year, so in 2024. We will again open up a new call for expressions of interest ahead of this second call as well. If you have already submitted an expression of interest in this first call, although you were not funded, you don't have to submit a second one then next year when we open the second call for expressions of interest. Your first one is enough. You don't need to resubmit again. And I think that was it. Yes, so we can now move on to the Q&A session. So I guess you have some questions that you want to answer. So as I said previously, please raise your hand. We will also keep an eye on the chat, but please raise your hand if you have a question, and my colleague will unmute you so you're able to ask your question. Any brave ones who wants to start? Yes, so we have one question from Vice Hermans. So just a minute, my colleague will unmute you and you can ask your question.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Vice Hermans. I don't represent a region at the moment, but I want to have an answer to the question to what Fernando mentioned, that there is also possible for a consortium to apply for for funding or to apply for expression of interest. Does that mean that a group of regions can also apply through one region or through a third party?
Shall we collect a couple of questions, or shall we address one by one?
We can take another one as well. So we will come back to that one.
Thank you, Vice.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we have Lucas.
Yeah, hello, my name is Lucas from Czech Republic, Moravian-Silesian region. We are from the Regional Office of Adaptation for our region. And currently we have, we are financed by the program from the LIFE, LIFE program. So I just want to ask if there is any problem when we are financed from the LIFE, if we can apply and also like combine the funding with you. So that's my question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, maybe we can address these two then, Fernando, to start with.
Yeah. The first one, Vice, the exact requirements for the eligibility of consortium will be will be published in the calls for proposals. But what we can suggest is you send us an email just to bring your question, and we already have it, already in the Q&A of the process for co-proposals. What I can already anticipate is that that in the same way, because we are following Horizon Europe rules, the same principles of Horizon rule in terms of participation of consortium will be applied, and the question that will be solved when we publish the call for proposals and about the eligibility condition is who has to be the main beneficiary. That will be specified because it's a question that we are now dealing with the European Commission, with SINEA. So I cannot tell the specifics. What I can tell is that yes, consortia will be applied. We expect that consortia could be different regions, or it could be the region with a number of local parties or regional parties that will support that region in the process of developing the project funded by Pathways to Resilient to create the Pathway Resilient plans and innovation agendas. So I hope I answered to that. And then the second question, in principle, again, because of the rules of Horizon Europe, the specifics of that. This is really the typical question we will need to send to SINEA for clarification. We anticipate that because one of the reasoning behind the mission is to combine different types of funding. Not only Horizon Europe, but all the programs. So as long as the principle of proportionality and a few others that are in Horizon Europe are met, I personally I think that shouldn't be a major obstacle or a barrier for participating in Pathways to Resilient. In fact, we are now exploring with the cities mission, for example, how to combine and how to create synergies. Participating cities in the cities mission. If they are also wanted to apply, for example, in the climate adaptation mission, not only us but also the mission adaptation platform. So for the case of projects funded by LIFE, then the specific answer also will be provided in the if you send us an email with that question, we can get the formal answer from our granting authority, but personally anticipate that it shouldn't be an obstacle, because in fact we're also exploring synergies with other programs, including LIFE. What that means in practice, the specifics of what it means in practice, it's obviously something that we're still yet to obtain an answer. But well, I hope I've given you some guidance that in principle regions we understand that are funded not only with this, there also cohesion funding already being implemented, or Interreg, or national funding being implemented. So synergies will be explored and created, and if there is any limitation, will be published. Will be publishing that, but we anticipate that it shouldn't be the case, or at least not as strongly.
Perfect. Thanks, Fernando. So there are a few questions in the chat as well. One is about the eligibility of UK and I don't know if Nicaragua or what local authorities. So
Northern Ireland.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So as we said, we presented the list of the countries that currently are associated countries to Horizon Europe, and the UK is not at the moment, but I mean, this can, as I said, this can change. So maybe before we open the call for proposals, the UK will be an associated country to Horizon Europe, but for the moment they are not. So you are not, in that sense, eligible. Then, so yeah, Fernando mentioned that the first call for proposals will open end of this year, and then the second one will be end of 2024. Maybe Fernando, can you answer how long will the call be open when it opens?
Yeah, because we are applying Horizon Europe rules, the call for proposal will be open for a period of 2 months, and then there will be the process of formal submission, evaluation, notification of results, and then signatures of sub-grant agreements. And between the time we open to the time the projects can start, you should really consider a time frame. Broadly speaking, again, this is non-binding what I'm about to say, but it's just a general guidance of the process. So that if we let's assume that we open the call in December, so projects would be getting the signature. Successful projects would be signing the grant agreements before the summer, and projects could be starting right after the summer break, or just before the summer break, or roughly 2024. And they will be the same for the next year. If the call for proposals opens in December, then 2024, then projects should be starting just before or right after the summer of 2025.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see what other questions we have in the chat. So I don't know if I understand it right, from the question from Laura. So what is the deadline for approval or to be contacted after the application of the expression of interest? I mean, for the expression of interest, there is no approval process, and it's just to express your interest, and we will then contact you, I mean, by the latest after the expression of interest process has closed, if you have expressed an interest to be, for example, get the support for the stakeholder engagement. From support for the stakeholder engagement. Otherwise, as soon as we are ready to publish the information on the first calls for proposals, we will of course then send it to you as you have expressed your interest to be informed about that. And then to use, so Fernando can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have said that when you have received the funding, the project to work on your resilience pathway is 18 months. So up to 18 months you can be working on this. So the funding should cover those 18 months basically. And that also answers the second question. So how much time will we have to design the strategy plan? So yes, up to 18 months. I don't know, Fernando, if you are able to answer to Miguel's question, the last one in the chat.
Yeah, well, obviously the devil is always in the details, what you mean by strategic plan. But in essence, what the projects will be doing and the funding that we are providing will be doing is to develop plans and strategies. But what I said is just not the traditional plans, in the traditional sense that you will have a plan to implement green walls, in your community. So that's not the spirit of this. We need to keep back to the keywords that I mentioned: systemic, transformative, and aiming at climate resilience. So this means that we will guide you through a process of, yes, the outcome will be some sort of guidance document, whether it's depending on the region and depending on the mandate of the region, depending, of the level of political support, etc. It could be a strategy, it could be a plan, and we call all of that pathway. So in essence, many of the activities and that you mentioned, Miguel, could be plan of a portfolio of solutions, of innovation agendas that will be part of the outcome of the projects, but also the funding element, how you're going to fund and finance the implementation. So Miguel, I hope we have given you that a bit of guidance. But another thing that you mentioned in your comment or in your question is actions that are needed in the local or the territorial context. Yes, of course, that's the spirit of the innovation agenda. So what you're mentioning there are areas of innovation agendas, and I will refer to you something I didn't mention in my presentation, but there is a key concept in the mission to for adaptation to climate change, which is called key community systems and key enabling conditions. It sounds a bit of buzzwords, but what it means is areas of innovation, like, for example, nature-based solutions or the surrounding environment around those solutions. So bottom line, Miguel, is that yes, the spirit of this call for proposals is strategy and planning in general, but they need to be transformative.
Great. And then we have a hand from Vitze, but I wonder if it's a legacy hand. So maybe we take a question from Christoph. So Christoph, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. It's working now?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm Christoph from Bremen. Sorry, I was a bit late, so maybe you already explained that. But I was wondering, what would you expect as kind of proposals? I mean, local, since we are in the with, let's say, horizon area or horizon sphere, do you expect us like apply with local research institutions, or do you expect kind of proposals where we subcontract local consultants, or what kind of proposal would you expect then? Or what kind of consortium would you expect? Do you have an idea already on that?
Yeah, thank you, Christoph. We have mentioned something about this, that the specific today is not the time to talk about the specific activities that will be funded under the call for proposals, because we're still working with CINEA in the text that for the first call for proposals. However, because we are following Horizon Europe rules, in general, activities eligible under Horizon Europe will be eligible in the subgranting. That means, you know, personal costs, organization of activities, and technical studies, if considered instrumental for the project, are typically on the Horizon Europe rules, typically eligible in this type of funding. The specific activities, and by this again, what I've just mentioned now is a non-binding information. It is just an indication that because we're following Horizon rules, typically the type of activities that you would fund in a normal Horizon project in terms of what you are eligible for, other direct costs, for example. But we will provide more guidance of what is and what is not eligible in the call for proposals. But if you if you were part of the presentation or part of the discussion until now, because this project is supporting Objective 2 of the climate adaptation mission to help regions, 100 regions, and we want the outreach of the 150, but we will have funding for 100 regions to prepare climate resilient pathways and innovation agendas, meaning a strategy and plans and the funding mechanisms already for implementing those solutions or those innovations. Is that yes, imagine some of the activities you've just mentioned are typically activities that are usually part of this type of eligible activities on the Horizon Europe, but the specifics will be published in the call for proposals. I hope it gives some further guidance or it provides some clarity.
Okay, so let's look a bit at the chat again. So there is a question on what is the range of budget that can be considered per project. And what we have said for now, it's up to 300,000 euros per project, but the actual split then between the regions will still have to be decided then at a later stage and will also be communicated. Yeah, and then so the expression of interest, we don't have a limit, let's say. So when we reach 150, if we do so, expressions of interest, we will not close it. The idea, that is really our goal, let's say, to reach 150, but we will at no point close it just because we have reached this goal. And the only support that actually comes with, like the direct support that can come with submitting an expression of interest is the stakeholder engagement support, and we will not be able to support 150 regions there. We don't really know yet exactly how many we will be able to support, as it depends a bit on what type of activities we will be doing exactly, and also, of course, a bit also the size of the regions and so on. So there are many factors playing in. So we cannot really say exactly how many we will be able to support yet. But that is the only support that comes directly, let's say, from the expression of interest process. And for Patrick, for your question, so yeah, exactly. So the Pathways to Resilience funding is not for implementing any adaptation solutions. It's really to do this, like Fernando said, this strategic work. So to develop the pathways and the agendas and plans and so on. So not if you want to implement any concrete like adaptation measures, that should be done with any other money then. Did you, Fernando, want to come in and say something on that?
No, just spot on. Yes, it's again, I hope I'm not sounding too strict and square of why, but this is how the mission of adaptation to climate change is organized. You know, there is another area of the mission that is funding implementation of large scale demonstrators. But as I mentioned in the presentation, that obviously this process of Pathways to Resilience will take into account different levels of development of the capacity of the region or the community, the local authorities to act, you know, the agency, the capacity to act, the actionability, you know, whether you're less advanced or more advanced, you know, the program it will offer something for you. And the second element is that the results of this process will help regions to be ready for implementation. Okay, it doesn't mean that you cannot implement along the way. The practical reality, maybe you are already implementing things, but we are pretty certain to the extent that we are doing this project, and that's why the mission has organized, that many of the solutions that we're implementing, you know, are needed. Of course, they're urgent, but we are looking at this element of strategic planning for transformation, because we can anticipate climate change, we can absorb the impacts of climate change, but transforming and it is and in some cases regenerating after the impacts, it's something that we are not preparing for. So it is not to take it for granted that this extra step in the planning process for transformation is something that it's minor. No, it is actually quite beyond practice, beyond what is currently done anywhere in the world. And then I know that some of the regions and some of the participants today come from regions that are doing great work, not only in climate action, but also in other areas of sustainability. But yeah, it's the mission is organized in such a way that, you know, the implementation is done elsewhere. But there are interconnections, and we are collaborating with the other projects. We are part of other projects, and the mission implementation platform is supporting all type of regions, and that's another mechanism of support that the mission is offering.
Yes. Then yes, so Turkey is eligible. It was mentioned as one of the, so you're an associated country to Horizon, so that's you're able to apply and express your interest. So I'm not sure if I understand the question on stakeholder engagement well, but of course, I mean, part of this work on developing your pathways and so on should also engage, I mean, you should engage your local stakeholders, regional stakeholders in this work. So of course you can build on work you've already done in the region for doing this. And yeah, I don't know if I understood your question correctly, so feel free to rephrase it in the chat if you had something else in mind. we've actually come to the end of the webinar, so we can answer one more question, but then the rest of the questions, we will, as I said, develop this FAQ document that we will upload to the website. So we will still answer your questions, but not today, so at a later stage, but you will be able to find answers to your questions on the website later. So maybe one final one. So the budget, once a region is selected, is the budget managed by us or by you, I guess the question is.
If it's the budget will be it's Horizon Europe rules, and I apologize if there is some noise in the background working from home today. A budget will be managed by the beneficiary, in the sense that, you know, there is, you know, like in Horizon Europe, that you have some you know, reporting periods, and then you get paid, and then you manage your own resources. That also means that you acquire the obligations of Horizon Europe in terms of compliance and reporting and audits. So the beneficiary, or the beneficiary on behalf of the consortium, is responsible for managing the budget, and it's made in installments according to what will be published in the call for proposals.
Perfect, thank you. Unfortunately, we will have to close here now for today. We will be addressing your questions in the FAQ document that we will produce, so it will be on the website hopefully in the next weeks. So you can always find answers to your questions there. If you have any questions related to the expression of interest process itself, you can also email the help desk. So you find all the information on our website. I will type, so I posted the the website page, so the address to our link to our website page in the chat. So on that page, you find all the key information you need at the moment around the expression of interest. And yeah, thank you a lot for joining today. It's been very nice to see such a large interest in the program and in the expression of interest. So yeah.
Just to mention, if you're attending the Mission Forum in Sweden Monday and Tuesday, we're going to be around, so we can have a chat about questions that you may have, as long as they're non-binding and all informal, of course.
Yes.
But yeah, see you next week. And thank you, Heidi and Lucy, for organizing this session, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a very nice weekend and have a nice Friday. Bye-bye.